Welcome back to Streamline Entertainment. It is Marvin speaking. I hope everyone's having a good day. I haven't seen the video, and to be honest, I haven't had time because I've been really busy with my own work. But someone said to me, a streamliner did say that uh, Chris Tenerife has invited me over to discuss the Jay Slater case. So, what, over to Tenerife? Interesting. I haven't basically decided that yet, but I'm probably going to wait until the documentary has finished and then debate on that. I think that's the best way forward on this one. A lot of people have jokingly said a few things at the end of the day, but I won't mention them now. The trouble with the whole case, this is from a streamliner who's followed this case very, very closely. And she basically thinks the same thing as me, but intensely have basically looked into this case just to see whether we can get answers, which is fair enough. So this person goes on to say the trouble with this whole case is that the good information gets debunked. Very true, which did happen in the early part of this case. What's see as truth, like the autopsy and things in the bag, the crime change things all the time to suit what they want. I've never changed my mind. Jay was taken there because Tom needed him there. Lucy thought she would use him as a money mule, probably because the bank already stopped her account. Interesting. This was the bit that went wrong for Lucy because his account got stopped. I'm not sure that Brandon is Brandon in that pool photo with the orange top. I really do think that is David Larkin with a wig on. That's very strange. I think the money Jay lost when his bank was stopped led to him being tabbed on the beach, organs removed, and the organs went to Gran Canaria, whilst Jay got dumped in the river. I have not seen Dan's video, but the torture likely happened in Tenerife. Maybe the Hennessy brothers were there also, came on one of the boats. I agree with that. It was Morocco that identified him. And I've always said that. And we did do the basically identification on that. But like I said, don't forget that a reporter that Ali knows had looked into it and basically paid for that information, and he was denied access as this because it was being looked into by the Spanish authorities and wasn't classified to go to any news article at that time, and never was, and they reimbursed him his money. This person goes on to say, I think Ayat was only involved because they needed eyes in Masca. Ayat could and did say whatever he liked because there was no trace of Jay at Masca, and he knew they would never find a trace of Jay. They never ever bothered putting Jay in the ravine again, not a shred of evidence. The bag was simply given to the dodgy Signey team so they could say they found it there. The documentary will just cement the word accident because there were no opportunity to debunk any of it. Much like the inquest, which is exactly part of it. I do also think that Brad was also taken, except his bank account worked longer, and Rach set up that GoFundMe saying it was for Jay to keep Brad's name out of it. Brad was paid off and set free, but made to pretend to be Jay in San Diego and for the witnesses. Really interesting stuff that obviously this person believes that basically it could be David Larkin apparently playing Brandon in the photo near the swimming pool. Interesting stuff. The end of the day, this case gets more bizarre, but each to his own. I mean, this only their person, basically what they're thinking, their narrative. Everyone have got a narrative in this case of what might have happened to Jay Slater, and a thought, should I say, but some interesting situations because, like I said, we've got torture come up a few times, which has been a topic of conversation some months ago, and it's been brought up a few times by different people as well. And like I said, we've just got to see what else comes out and whether there are any other people who are willing to maybe go along the Mia route, which she went, and have their opportunity to discuss the Jay Slade account. But I do believe there are a lot of people with video evidence and basically text messages that they've captured on their phones that could actually tell us the true story. And that's all we wanted. And Brad was paid off and set free. I don't know, to be honest. I don't think he was paid off, but I do think there's a possibility that he was taken as well, because he was a part of that clique, just say. But like I said, he's free now to do whatever he wants. What we have to remember is that this, whatever happened to Jay, is basically signed off as an accident by the coroner. And like I said, I think that was always going to be the case due to the Spanish authorities basically saying, look, there's nothing to look here. But the Morocco thing was very, very strange, because I think that was Jay. And it was said to be basically a young white man between 18 and 22. Why was that article just so small? It really was very, very, very strange. And we never got to find out who was that. Yes, there was someone else about the same time, a man which was much older. But I do think that was Jay. And I do agree with Jay's body going to Morocco. And I do think that there was boats involved. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of the sleuths who mentioned boats got into some trouble. But like I said, we can have this discussion. We've got to remember at the end of the day, with the Jay Slater case now where we are, like obviously the private messenger said, there's not really any proof of anything, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, yes, we have our own narrative into maybe what happened to Jay Slater at the end of the day, but I think the people involved are big time. And like I said, as give us a little bit of the runaround. But we just have to see what comes up next and just hope that one day we'll get the real truth and the real timeline, should I say. I'm going to move on to part two, people. We're going to move on to part two, people, and this is Hayley Comet, the last message to Brad.
So according to Debbie Duncan, the mother of Jay Slater, in the new documentary that's airing on the 28th on Sunday, she says that when she turned on Jay's mobile phone and looked at his Snapchat, it instantly sent a message through that had not been sent from Jay to Brad. And in that message it said, "I'm not going to make it." Now, Jay died from a tragic fall, apparently, where he gained a head trauma, which killed him instantly. So at what point during that fall are we led to believe that Jay sent a message said, "I'm not going to make it," because apparently he died on impact? So that tells you once again that Jay Slater probably was murdered, and at some point while running away from his assailant and eventual killers, he sent a message to his best friend saying, "I'm not going to make it. I can't make it." Oh, sorry, my voice went then. "I can't make it make sense in any other way." Because how did somebody who died from a fall, from head trauma or an impact, have sent a message? Now, when you're falling from a cliff, you're obviously going to lose contact with your bag, with your phone. You're not going to have the wherewithal to send a message. So it makes no sense. If Jay was going to send a last message after a fall, he's going to say, "Look, I'm down inside this area. Here's the screenshot, come and get," all of those things. But he didn't. Let's also remember, in connection with that, he sent a message at 3:07 that morning to Lucy saying, "I'm marked. I can't go to Papagayo. I'm not safe." If you add that with the further message, it really tells a picture. It paints a picture.
Good points there by Hayley Comet. T8 in the chat says what is not sent before the fall, meaning he wasn't going to make it back to where he was staying because he had got himself lost. But the only thing, why would he go off road when he could ring his parents to say, "Look, I'm lost," or they would tell him to phone the police? Then he'd say, "I'm going to make it back." There you go. He wasn't going to make it. Why not sit down or return to the Airbnb for help? He was murdered. that was serendipity. I don't think Jay wrote it. Here we go. Here we go. So that means that if Jay didn't wrote it, someone else did and would have had control of his phone. Rosanna's life, he probably sent it when he was wandering about or lost. I don't think so, to be honest with you. Again, Rosanna, I just want to say one thing to you at the end of the day. If he was lost, why would he go off road? Because he must have been on that path if he was actually there at some time. Just say he was there. Hearsay. Why wouldn't he call his parents? If he was in any danger of any sort, he would have texted his mum. Unless that's to come in the documentary at the end of the day. But she was surprised that his dad was surprised he took that walk, because, like I said, he's knowing that's not Jay Warren. Was it a tragic fall, or could he have sustained the head injury from the suspects and then they threw him off the cliff? That's also possible. Snapchat doesn't send the message if his phone went off before he sent it, like when you turn it back on. Yeah, I agree. If he was running from killers, I doubt he would be sending a snapshot. I think he was walking lost, very little battery, and on rugs. I think it's more likely that was the case. But 2 hours walking in the wilderness plus, in the condition he was in, that just doesn't make sense to me. As we know, no matter what comes up, said shown, the parents have accepted it and is an accident. Evidence shows otherwise murder. The Snapchat is just another piece we will never get the truth or answer for. Poor Jay. Sent it while plummeting. This case keeps me up at night. 100% agree. Agree, I think they all know the truth of what actually happened to Jay. Sophie says, I think he was running and tried to send the text. Then his phone and battery died. Don't know, that just doesn't make sense to me, to be honest with you. Why would he be running alongside cliffs and dangerous areas? Doesn't make sense to you. You know, you have to see the Masker Mountains. Why would he be running? Bit strange, that is. How can a tragic fall, or something Jay knows about before it happens, something more than this? Yeah, definitely. If Jay sent a message to Brad, he knew it was his last why. Did Jay not text it till his mum was instead of Brad? It was his last message. There you go. This is my point. If Jay was in serious trouble, he would have basically contacted his mum or anything that his last message is, or he was in trouble. He would have done. I agree with you 100%. Jay was murdered. But like I said, we cannot prove that at the moment. I think that, but it can't be proven. Is that the grammar too? Why would a young lad put commas at that young one's text in slang? Yeah, you would have thought that. I don't understand the Snapchat being sent once the phone was turned on. If that was the case, wouldn't it have been sent when the police turned it on? Then wasn't the phone wiped? So many questions, and none of it makes sense. And this is why we're still here, people. Good points by Hayley. Comment. Let me know what you think, to be honest with you, about the phone. It's weird. It's something that, about the phone, we did know about all the CCTV that now basically Channel 4 and Condor Productions have now got, which I find is kind of odd, because all this stuff should have been out before. So we could have looked into it or maybe helped in some way in finding the truth. But no, we weren't allowed to, and we've got to wait till the documentary. Just seems pretty weird to me. That was part 2, people. We're just going to move on to the final part. Thank you. Welcome back to the final part, people. And it's just a bit about a DCI Higson, what she said. So this is by the Manchester Evening News, people. And it goes on to say, Jay attended the NRG Music Festival in Tenerife on June the 16th last year, but instead of returning to his hotel, he'd gone to a rural village with 2 men. His parents suspected he might have been attacked, especially since he had bragged about stealing a luxury watch and planned to sell it, but no watch was ever found, and that was debunked, people, by a lot of us. Furthermore, Jay had sent a concerning photo of himself with 2 knives hidden in his shorts, claiming it was in case it kicks off. After his body was discovered in a remote mountainous region 4 weeks later, his iPhone was handed off to Lancashire police. Okay, so we had 2 knives on him, Jay, but we never actually saw that photo. But, you know, where is this story coming along? Probably from one of his friends, if it kicks off. And there's a picture of 2 hidden knives in his shorts, which none of us has ever seen, or it never, ever came on the internet at any time, or videos on TikTok. Detective Chief Inspector Rachel Higson, head of the Force Digital Media Investigations, was tasked with sifting through 73,000 pages of phone records to piece together Jay's final days. Okay. I'd imagine that was from the witnesses, you know, phones as well. Was it just Jay's? It was a challenge for us, DJ Higson admitted at the inquest into Jay's death held yesterday at Preston Coroner's Court. DJ Higson and a team were able to access Jay's mobile on the 20th of April with a significant amount of data provided by his Apple ID. Interesting stuff. The account holds the user's personal information and setting, which is automatically utilized when the Apple ID is used to log into an Apple device. A crucial piece of evidence was found in Apple Health app, which has been instrumental in tracking Jay's movement after he left the Casa Obula Tina Airbnb in Masca. The app records data such as the number of steps taken and, critically in Jay's case, the terrain. DJ Higson noted, what we can see is from 7:59 a.m. to 8:49 a.m. that there's activity and a lot of steps taken, adding that there were a lot of incline and all that activity ceased at 8:49 a.m. Interesting stuff. So technically, he was just walking for around about 15 minutes, a lot of movement. And that's what basically his activity on his phone said. Well, she seemed to have got that information from there. Although some might reach the conclusion that it was shortly after 8:49 a.m. on June 17th when Jay felt it was death. The examination of his phone also showed that 8:51 a.m., after which there was no ingoing or outgoing activity, his battery was at just 1%. The inquest also heard from the search and rescue volunteers that it would have taken Jay approximately 3.5 hours to walk from the Airbnb to the remote area where his body was discovered. No chance do I think he'd done that walk, to be honest with you. 3.5 hours in that terrain, in the condition he was in. Yeah, right. Jay's phone data also contained the exact coordinates of his location when he sent messages to his friends, including Brandon Hodson, who police have been unable to locate as part of the coroner's investigations. How bizarre that his best friends, didn't even want to come to the coroner's court and basically give their version of what happened. It is believed that he's currently travelling abroad. Yeah, we've heard that one before. These coordinates enabled the police to determine the path Jay took in his attempts to reach the coast and return to the hotel where his friends were anxiously awaiting his return. So why didn't they go and help him? And his mum, Debbie, had even said that, how he never made it back. A large-scale search and rescue operation was initiated, but it took 4 weeks to locate Jay, with the mountainous terrain around Masca adding to the difficulty. A post-mortem examination revealed that he had sustained a catastrophic brain injury due to the fall from a height, and it's unlikely he would have survived, even with specialist neurosurgical care. The inquest into Jay Slater was adjourned after his parents pleaded with Lancashire Senior Coroner Court Dr. James Adderley to make further attempts to find the 2 men who had last seen his son alive, Ayub Qasim and Stephen Rockas. The inquest is expected to resume sometime in June or July this year. And it was a letdown, to be honest with you, because those witnesses, even though I think Ayub was on video link where Stephen Rockas didn't turn up, to be honest, even though he said that basically he had a lawyer or someone representing him, which was kind of odd, to be honest with you. But about the phone and the data coordinates, I'm not too sure what to believe. I don't think that it was Jay controlling that phone, to be honest with you. I think he had that phone taken in the nightclub and someone else was controlling it. I really do think that, to be honest with you. And then it was said that his phone was wiped in another article, which is quite bizarre. So if his phone was wiped, how would basically we get instant messages? That just doesn't make sense to me. Things don't add up. And like I said, and I think this is why people are talking about the case. I did want to put that basically out there about DCI Higson. I think it was quite important. I would have liked to know a little bit more into the phone, what was found and what was not found at the end of the day. Because, like I said, didn't his mum say, Debbie, that there weren't that many pictures or information on that phone, and she was quite surprised, to be honest with you. It some of it doesn't make sense, but like I said, that was a little bit about the phone. I don't think he was in control of that phone, to be honest with you. And people have mentioned this as there a possibility that he was chased into that ravine, but 3.5 hours away, I just don't know. It's just bizarre to me, to be honest with you. Let me know what you think, people. But like I said, DCI Hickson did do our job. But like I said, do we know 100% that Jay had his phone? That was him operating that phone. I'm not so sure. Don't forget to subscribe to Streamline Entertainment, and I'd like to hear your points, please. Thank you very much indeed.